Hi everyone, I'm Trev from Coiltek, and today I'm going to have a bit of a chat with Guy, the Gold Rush guy. So hi Guy, how are you?
G'day, Trevor. How you going?
Good mate, good. Thanks for joining me on this little show that we're going to put together. So the 10x5 coil is a new design for us, a new injection molded design, quite lightweight and a spoke design. Same wing design as the 14x9 we put on there. So I would say that you've had some good success with that, or how have you found it?
Yeah, really good. Obviously, with the size of it, the pinpointing is fantastic, and just it's interesting because I know there's a couple of parks that so probably what a lot of people don't realise, and this is not just in Melbourne, probably in a lot of parks across the world, is that give about 100, 150 years ago, people just use them for dumps. So there's a lot of rubbish in a lot of the parks, and then basically they get dressed and dressed up over time. So some of them can be really, really noisy. So it's good to sort of get into those areas and eke out a few coins in there. But and also a lot of our I get into the golf fields, and some of the towns have just basically tin all over the place, from old galvanized roofs and so forth. And yeah, just to get in between there, and just as I said, we just work, just waiting for that little tone and just bang. Yeah, it's quite good because even with the bigger coils, yeah, it can be difficult to pick up that small little tone difference that could be that target hiding.
And so the 10x5, being quite narrow, with the 5 inches wide, the target separation in those areas is what you've been saying. It can sort of really identify targets that sit next to others in a bit easier way because it's more narrow.
Yeah, and I think the other good thing about it, Trevor, is that it is a 10x5. So you've got the length of a 10-inch, which is not far away from basically the stock coil. But again, that 5-inch really just gives you that separation in the sort of trashy areas. And I also like the elliptical to actually, especially with the smaller coils, because usually in trashy areas, these trashy areas can be associated with a lot of bushes and so forth, where a lot of old buildings would have old trees and all that sort of stuff growing out of them. So to actually get in and out of little nooks and crannies, and a lot of them also still have some building rubble. So it's quite a benefit of that too.
Oh, that's great. And how do you find the balance with the 10x5? Because, we've reduced the weight a fair bit on that one and made it pretty lightweight. How have you found the weight on the machine?
Yeah, the weight's fantastic. It's quite it's quite fascinating. Even when you go to some of the stock coils and down to that coil, it just feels like you're not swinging anything. But yeah, it's been really, really good to get into that, because when you do get into these really tight areas, a lot of it's about sort of concentration and pushing into areas and you really do need that concentration. So to not have that fatigue factor on top of it, because your arm's starting to hurt after a few hours and so forth, is really, really quite beneficial. So you got to be on your game, because as I said, your concentration, especially with some of these small little tones that will come through, is quite important to being successful.
So for the 10x5, where would be your perfect choice to hunt with this coil? Like, what would be your perfect location?
Yeah, look, I would select areas that have a lot of trash in them. So that would be my first port of call. So, and these are areas where I've been over with and had success with some of the bigger coils, and just going in there and just tracking things along, because it's as I said, one of the things, especially when we're out in broader acreage and gold field sort of areas, is that trash is king, because trash tells you that someone's actually physically been there. So it's very, very important to go over these areas quite well. So we'd all like to walk out into a paddock and just every 5 or 10 meters have this beautiful signal, and you dig up this lovely old trading token or something like that. But it's
no junk. That's every detectorist's perfect dream, isn't it? Every target is a good target.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as you know, that's just not reality, because over the years, a lot of these have either been ploughed, or basically just scattered through time. So.